that is tackling foundation, definition, and scope of sociolinguistics. We should first start with dialectology. Dialectology is basically the study of dialects. When we say dialectology, it comes from what? It comes from the word dialect, that is a variety, okay? So it's the study of dialects from a regional angle. It's also called dialect geography. Why? Because we're saying regional, so obviously we're talking about geographical areas, all right? Good. Now there is really a lot to be said in here, which we'll be tackling inshallah in the coming video. As for sociolinguistics, this is why it was once or sometimes termed as social dialectology or urban dialectology, is that in here we have regional dialectology, which was dominant before the rise of sociolinguistics with William Labov. So once variationist sociolinguistics was there, it was later on termed social dialectology or urban dialectology. So when talking about sociolinguistics, it's actually the study of variation in language, or more precisely of social variation. You see here this key word or key term within speech communities. This is so important. So in this definition, we can see the link between variationist sociolinguistics developed and introduced by William Labov, which takes into account social variations, okay, within these speech communities, okay. And when we talk about speech communities, we're talking about Delheim's speech communities. So in here we can see the link between these two and how they intermingle in their quest of studying these variations, again present within these speech communities. When talking of sociolinguistics, we'll be basically tackling three different things. The first thing is language and social life, okay? An orientation to the study of language that stresses the interrelationship between language and social life. We've been saying this all along. We said that we care here about how social factors affect language use, okay? Or how social factors induce variations. So in here we're obviously stressing the relationship between language and social life, okay, rather than focusing narrowly or just on language structure. This is basically the difference between structuralism and variationist sociolinguistics, okay? So we said language and social life, two, the communicative competence of speakers, because sociolinguistics again highlights this competence of communication, the choices open to speakers, the ways in which they tailor language to different functions and interactional ends. We said previously that under this communicative competence we have three different competencies. We have obviously the linguistic competence, because we need language to communicate, but not solely that, also the pragmatic competence and the sociolinguistic competence. So in here we're talking about the different choices open for speakers and how they select the appropriate choice, okay? Either based on the situation or based on their own preferences, but it's always stressing the different functions and interactional ends of a certain conversation, okay? So we said language and social life, communicative competence, and three, we have identity. When we say identity, it's basically that we're not solely using language to communicate, but also to signal or to create identities, okay? When we say identity, we're talking about either an individual identity or a group identity, okay? When we talk of the individual identity, we've already stated that we have different factors, all right? These different factors, these different sociolinguistic factors, when they get together, they form the identity of the individual. So when we take into account age, gender, occupation, social class, education, all of these social factors, all together, they signal the identity of the individual. Okay, so in here we're talking about what? We're talking about the individual social identity. Group identity, on the other hand, has to do with creating or belonging to a certain group identity. So we're either talking of adapting to a certain identity or maintaining our own identity as speakers. And I would say speakers of a certain identity, they can tell when a foreigner, when someone, who belongs to another identity is trying to fit in or is trying to adapt. Okay? So in here, we're talking about what? We're talking about identity negotiation in sociolinguistics, you see? Is that when we try to adapt to another group's identity, we're in a way, doing what? Converging, okay? And when we try to maintain our own identity, we are doing what? We are diverging, all right? So this is something that we will see in details, inshallah, in coming videos. So again, we have three different factors or points that sociolinguistics tackles. First, language and social life. Second, communicative competence. And third, identity. Good. Now, when talking and when asking the question, why variation? Right? So we have first, in a speech community of any size, there is considerable variation among individuals. Is that stockbrokers, for instance, they don't talk in the same way as plumbers, for instance. And in here we find different registers, okay? Sometimes if we take a plumber and we ask him to have a conversation with a stockbroker, they may not even understand each other, you see? And in here we're highlighting what? We're highlighting social class, okay? Good. Also, women don't talk like men. And in here we're highlighting again what? We're highlighting gender, okay? When talking of instances of this, some good examples of this, actually for females, is that generally taken as more polite or as submissive. When we say polite, we're talking about the choice of language, the choice of words, okay? So they may use some words like please, okay? We have also tag questions. And they say, isn't it? You see that isn't it at the end of the question. So in here we see that they are more like questioning. They are being less certain, etc. So these are some instances. However, for males, they are more certain, all right? So they say, for instance, if we say, it's cold, isn't it? For men, they'll be like, it is cold, you see? So these are some differences between males and females when it comes to language use based, again, on gender. Good. Also, when we take a look at young versus old people, they do not talk in the same way. You can notice that yourselves with your grandparents, okay? So for young people, we notice the use of slang more often. We have also the influence of social media, of internet, of technology, okay? So we notice that young people adopted more, I would say, contemporary words into their speech. So these are basically some differences based on age as a social factor. Moreover, when we tackle variation, even in a single individual, it's not actually confined to a single variety of the language they speak. Is that sometimes the conversation is what? Is casual, that is, when the individual is talking to his friends or his family members, maybe even at coffee shops, etc. There is also the formal language, right? So this is generally used in job interviews or when talking to your teacher or etc. However, not all formal is actually academic, because when talking of the academic language, it has to do with what? It has to do with a certain language that is meant for research, for writing essays, etc. So it has, I would say, a set of norms, all right? So we can say that not all formal is academic, but all academic is by necessity formal, you see? Also ceremonial, let's say if you're talking to the president, you will also show a different variety, okay? So these are some, I would say, registers, because they depend on where you are, who you are talking to, and what you are doing, okay? So again, it is based on the situational context. So moving now to a broader scope, okay, regarding sociolinguistics, is that it actually delves into the understanding of users' social attitudes. When we say attitudes, we're basically talking beliefs, opinions, etc., okay? So one good example of this is actually the poll that was launched by the, I believe, the previous Minister of Higher Education, to vote for or against promoting English in higher education. So in here we have the targeted population or audience, who are students and teachers. You see? Good. We have also standard and non-standard forms, which is a case for choice generally in Western societies. I mean, what form is to be standardized, you see? We will be tackling this point even further in next video, inshallah. All right? Also, the social varieties, that is jargon, registers, dialects, standards, non-standards, I mean all of these. Sociolinguistics also delves into the levels of language, that is, formality levels, okay? And also the social basis of multilingualism. When we say multilingualism, it's when users are able to use, I would say, proficient in more than one language. In here, bilingualism. So when we say multilingualism, in more than 2 languages. All right, good. The aim of sociolinguists is to do what? To provide sociological explanation, okay, to existing and emerging linguistic phenomena. So basically, linguistic phenomena are being described and being explained with reference to sociological reality. All right? Good. And solutions, when the latter are of problematic nature or might raise issues of political and national concerns. A good example of this basically is actually linked to the EMI, English as a Medium of Instruction in Algeria, which is nowadays, I mean, provoking and presenting an array of problems. All right, is that sociolinguists can propose solutions, ensuring a smooth transition, maybe ensuring the linguistic readiness solutions. You see, I don't know, maybe by launching intensive language teaching centers, etc. So in here we're basically talking about occasions when sociolinguists are needed to provide solutions to existing problems. And whenever we speak about a solution-oriented discipline, it has to be applied. So in here, the discipline is actually termed applied sociolinguistics. Okay? Good. Now, when tackling the difference between sociolinguistics and the sociology of language, is that sociolinguistics is actually concerned with the effect of society on language. So the major thing here is language. I mean, what we are interested in is language, right? Good. However, for the sociology of language, it is concerned with the effect of language on society. So we care more about society and the sociology of language, okay? Again, sociolinguistics is the study of language in relation to society. Exactly what we're doing is that we're tackling these variations, which means we're tackling always linguistic variations, in relation to social factors, in relation to society. However, for the sociology of language is actually the study of society in relation to language. You see? Good. So when talking of sociolinguistics, we're saying that it takes language at its starting point and draws on society as necessary background and analytical construct to actually understand language. However, for the sociology of language, it takes society at its starting point and analyzes language developments with a view to illuminating the nature of society. So, whenever we say sociolinguistics, we are more concerned with language. We just take social factors into consideration to either explain or to describe or to provide solutions, etc. All right. However, in the sociology of language, we are more concerned with the society, all right, and how language influences that. Good. That will lead us directly to micro and macro sociolinguistics. For micro sociolinguistics, and if we come here and if we try to see the origin, so we see here that micro from Greek micros meaning small, and macro is from Greek macros meaning large. You see? So when we talk of micro sociolinguistics, is the study of a small scale language use. Macro sociolinguistics is the study of large scale language phenomena. All right, so if we come here and we consider these, we see that micro sociolinguistics is concerned with investigating the relationships between language and society, with the goal being a better understanding of the structure of language, you see, and of how languages function in communication. So basically in here we are interested in, or basically we are always in sociolinguistics, is that we are studying these linguistic variations in relation to society, okay? However, for macro sociolinguistics, we're trying to discover how social structures, you see, can be better understood through the study of language. For example, how certain linguistic features serve to characterize particular social arrangements. So this is the major difference in here. And basically, even in here, macro sociolinguistics, it's always linked to the sociology of language. Okay? Good. Now, again, macro sociolinguistics investigates how social structure influences the way people talk and how language varieties and patterns of use correlate with social attributes such as class, sex, let's say gender, okay, and age. So in here we can see that we're always in sociolinguistics, we're always concerned with the linguistic variations and how they are basically being influenced or triggered or caused by these social factors. Okay. For macro sociolinguistics, on the other hand, okay, studies what societies do with their languages. That is what? Attitudes, attachments that account for the functional distribution of speech forms in society. All right, when we talk about functional distributions, is basically talking about the systematic distributions. We have language shift, maintenance, replacement, the delimitation and interaction of speech communities, etc. So this one here covers topics such as language choice, domains, language planning, educational policy, etc. And we will tackle these even more, okay, in coming videos. There is really like a lot to be said regarding these. Coming back now to the micro side, to sociolinguistics, to what we're doing this semester. So we said that many sociolinguists consider the study of language variation to be the central part of micro sociolinguistics, just what we've been saying. However, fine-grained studies of topics such as conversational analysis, code switching, language context, etc. also have micro focus because these are generally considered macro, you see. However, we always find that they do have a micro focus in them, you see. So we end up saying that there are many instances in which both micro and macro seem to be two-sided of the same coin, and several topics like language change, bilingualism, acts of identity, code switching have been informed by both approaches. So if I come to actually separate these two, it seems very impossible because when I do imagine them, I see them as, starting with macro. Macro is the bigger, circle. You see, so for me, when I visualize this, I see macro as the bigger circle, under which or in which we have micro circles here and there. Why? So when these variations accumulate, they actually end up forming varieties, you see? So this is why when we come to actually talk of these two, we find that they are very much intermingled, they're interrelated. So we will be inshallah tackling all of these in future videos. Thank you so much for your attention and see you in the next video.